all, welcome to the video. I'm Samya, your host, and today I'll be showing you the footage from Inktober Day 31 because Inktober is over! Can you believe we all made it this far? Whether you've been watching people's progress, or drawing along, or setting your own personal goals for the month, personal art goals, and whatnot, I commend you for getting this far and for making it through the month, and now it's November, and that's just crazy. This year is going so fast. I mean, it's not just me, right? It's going really, really fast. Anyway, I wanted to share with you some of the things I learned from Inktober, specifically 7 things I learned from Inktober, and I was going to save this for a review video, but I might do a sketchbook tour later, and then that's when you can see some of my other Inktober works. So let me know in the comments below too if you have a preference, if you want one big sketchbook tour when I finish the sketchbook that I used for Inktober, or if you'd like to see all of the work. But as usual, everything I did every single day of Inktober is on my Instagram at SamyaSaline, so please follow me there if you'd like to see my work and my progress, and let's get into it. So, the first thing I learned from Inktober is that texture makes things better. And by texture, I don't just mean adding lines and cross-hatching for shading. I mean adding interesting elements to every part of the design, small elements and large ones. For example, adding some cross marks to the underside of her hat to give that a different texture than the side that's facing you. Give it a bit more of a shadow for when I color it in. Or putting some of the small foliage by the bow, which kind of gives you like a small detail next to the bow, which is a medium detail, and then the hat is a larger detail. Also adding folds to clothing, adding like seams to some of the clothing where it would be sewn, or adding places where it would wrinkle. Putting in pleats on the skirt, putting in cross marks that imply the texture of the fabric, not just the light and shadow. These are all things that I felt made my drawings a bit stronger, but I also learned how much time this sort of detail work takes. So it's not present in a lot of my Inktober's because I didn't really realize how much it would punch up a drawing, and you can see in some of my Inktober's there's a cyberpunk witch on my Instagram where I did a lot of cross-hatching in some of the fabrics, and it really made a difference. It really made that piece pop a bit more than other ones did. The second thing I learned is that I do rely on color in my work. I rely on color to make things interesting. And that's great if the end game is like really beautiful shades and everything blended and all of that, but that's not always super interesting. You do need a combination of interesting line work and color and shape and form and texture in order to make your pieces interesting. And instead of thinking about whether the lines surrounding the shape would be thin or thick, whether it's in ink or even just pencil, I would sort of just fill it in with a color and kind of move on to the next thing and not really work on it much. And I think color is my strong suit, personally. Stronger than my actual technical drawing, but it is something that I don't want to rely on. I want the rest of my drawing ability to be further punched up by the use of color. So that was the second thing I learned. The third thing I learned is that stiff lines make stiff drawings. And this was really interesting because I had so many Inktober's where I liked the pose, I'd used reference, but it just seemed static. And I sort of realized that it was because sometimes when I used the technical pens, everything had the same weight, or I had been holding the pen really tight and so the line wasn't that clean. And instead of everything looking loose, it was just like, it was probably already a stiff pose in the sketching, and that I need to fix. I need to work on my anatomy like a lot. But it just looked stiffer by the time it was put down in ink because I was holding on to that pen so tight that I just got really stiff lines, and it was not fun at all. So that was the third thing I learned. Number 4. Limited palettes, limited color palettes are so pretty. Oh my god, I loved how many times I got to just use a limited palette this month because I did want to let myself use color for like a like just to punch it up or for like an accent. I mentioned that in other videos too. But I didn't want to rely on it, so I made sure it was limited. And oh my god, it's just, I don't know, there's something about using that one pop of color and then really focusing on shading it perfectly and then putting it in spots throughout the piece to unify the piece that just has such a gorgeous effect. Like, I just love it and I want to do it more in my regular work. So you can see in this piece that my limited palette included a little bit of yellow, mainly just for her eyes, and a little bit of the foliage in her hat, but mainly orange because I knew I wanted the pumpkin to really pop, the pumpkin that she's holding. And I wanted it to be mostly gray wash, but I wanted her to still look full color. So I used 2 colors for her skin. I used a light, sort of like reddish yellow for her hair, and then shaded that with gray wash. And I used the bright yellow for her eyes. And these are all Copic and Prismacolor markers, by the way. And I'll try and put a list of all the supplies I use in this video in the description below, if anybody wants to know. But I just felt that the pop of color with the various grades of ink wash really helped this piece pop. And then later on, when I was able to use my new fancy, happy, metallic palette to put some glitter in there, I just really liked it because it was all the same colors, right? Not red, but orange and yellow are analogous colors. They're next to each other on the color wheel, that's what that means. And that's why they look so good together, and it doesn't look too all over the place to include both of them, even though they are technically different colors. So the next thing I learned was that being organized really helped my habits this Inktober. I kept a list of the witches prompts I wanted to do, and then I had an ongoing list of every time I deviated from that, what I drew instead. And between having the witches prompts and then doing my own characters when I wanted to, it really helped me always have an idea and sort of know how to proceed instead of sitting there and like thinking of what I want to draw for hours and hours, which is what stopped me in last year's. So having multiple prompts and a little bit of leeway with when I do what really helped me out, and it expedited the process. Although what I would change next year is I would do more sketches in advance once I have some of the prompt lists, because it still took me so long to sketch and like get all my ideas on paper, all the elements, the pose I want, the references I want, that I didn't really get to complete a lot of the Inktober drawings. And some of them I'm going to go back and get it to the level of finish that I want it to be at, just for a couple of them, because I never had time to say like color them or shade them. It was like just line work some days, and I want them to ultimately be more than that. So this second to last thing that I learned was no more floating space. I'm so tired of people in floating space. And by floating space, I mean there's a figure, there's a white background, and that is it. And I really wanted to get better at like putting something back there, even if it was just like branches that don't look like branches, or in this case, the moon and the smoke and the ghost, or even just a black square and some floating elements. I just really wanted them to have some kind of environment, and I really want to keep pushing that in my work. And the last thing is, try different tools. This is why I was so excited to get my new metallic watercolor set before the end of Inktober. I tried so many different ink brushes. I did technical pens some days, I did ink brushes other days, I did both most days. I used different types of watercolors, I used cheap ones, expensive ones, I used this metallic palette, I used my markers, I used everything. And the most fun part about Inktober was getting to experiment with different ink-based tools and see what kind of line work I can get with each of them. For example, I have a pre-made Pentel ink wash aquash pen in light black that I show in one of my other videos. And then I have a water brush pen that I just filled with a lighter gray wash because I just needed a lighter gray wash ready to go. And I like the ink flow on that one better than the one I bought from the store, than the pre-made light black. I don't know what it is. I think it's the flow and the fact that it's a little bit lighter. It's not too close to like actual black. So maybe that's why I like it better. But that was what I used on her skirt. It was just that brush pen that I filled myself. So we're coming to the end of the video. I'm doing some detail work now. You can see me doing it with my Signo gel pen, but that's the 7 things I learned from Inktober, and I hope this video has been a little bit helpful for anyone who wanted to recap or just wants to know what's the point of Inktober. I had a blast. I'm getting ready to do another small art challenge for myself. I'm going to see if anyone wants to join in, so I'll announce that soon in a future video. And I've got some more tutorials and stuff on the way for like watercolor portraits and whatnot, so I hope you're excited for it. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It would really, really help me out. Share it with anyone who you think would enjoy it. And until next time, keep drawing, keep creating. I hope you have a wonderful week and a good start to the November month. Have a good one. Bye!